Good morning, gentlemen. As you know, on August 2nd, and again on August 4th, North Vietnamese surface vessels attacked U.S. destroyers operating on routine patrol in international waters in the Gulf of Tonkin. In retaliation for this unprovoked attack on the high seas, our forces have struck the bases used by the North Vietnamese patrol craft. During the night, 64 attack sorties were launched from the U.S. carriers Ticonderoga and Constellation against 4 North Vietnamese patrol bases and certain support facilities associated with those bases. These points are located on this map showing the Gulf of Tonkin, South China, North Vietnam. The first base is at Hong Gai in the north of Vietnam, the second at Lac Chau, the third at Phuoc Loy, the fourth at Quang Cay. And the fifth strike was against the Vinh oil storage depot, which is associated with the Phuoc Lao torpedo base. The oil storage depot, which contains 14 tanks, approximately 10% of the total petroleum storage capacity of North Vietnam, was 90% destroyed. Smoke was observed rising to 14,000 feet. In addition to the damage to the torpedo boat bases and to their support facilities, approximately 25 of the boats were damaged or destroyed. 2 of our aircraft were lost, 2 of our aircraft were damaged. All others have been recovered safely on the carriers. The destroyers Maddox and Turner Joy, which have been operating on routine patrol in the Gulf of Tonkin, have resumed their patrol operations in international waters. Last night I announced that moves were underway to reinforce our forces in the Pacific area. These moves include the following actions. First, an attack carrier group has been transferred from the First Fleet on the Pacific coast to the Western Pacific. Secondly, interceptor and fighter bomber aircraft have been moved into South Vietnam. Thirdly, fighter bomber aircraft have been moved into Thailand. Fourthly, interceptor and fighter bomber squadrons have been transferred from the United States into advanced bases in the Pacific. Fifthly, an anti-submarine task force group has been moved into the South China Sea. And finally, selected Army and Marine forces have been alerted and readied for movement. I want to emphasize that the damage report which I gave to you is based on preliminary reports received shortly after the completion of operations. I'll take your questions and endeavor to answer them. Yes.
Mr. Secretary, were the planes that we lost, the 2 planes, down by ground fire? And also, was there any air action from North Vietnam?
The 2 planes we lost were down by anti-aircraft fire. There was no enemy air reaction.
Sir, can you
Yes.
tell us the height of the attack? How low did we come to?
Generally, the strikes were at low level.
Times, local times on these?
The local times ranged from on the order of noon to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Can you tell us, sir, how long the attack...
These are local Vietnamese times.
Can you tell us how long the entire strike lasted?
Roughly 4 to 5 hours.
What was the weather like?
Bad.
Rainy or?
Low ceiling.
What type of anti-aircraft fire?
There was heavy anti-aircraft fire over several of the targets. Oh, guns rather than missiles.
Small scale or big caliber? Anything?
I can't tell you the caliber, other than that it was heavy anti-aircraft fire. Yes.
Which of these bases the planes were down?
No, I can't. The question was, at which points were the 2 aircraft lost? I can simply say that the heaviest anti-aircraft fire was received at Hong Gai, the most northerly of the bases attacked.
Is that also the largest of the bases?
It is the largest, yes.
On the torpedo bases themselves, could you describe the damage, whether light, heavy, or?
It's too early to say, and we'll have to wait until the pilot's reports have been fully assessed.
Number of American casualties?
2. 2 pilots were lost, one in each of the 2 downed aircraft.
Are you giving out their names?
Not
today?
until their nearest of kin have been notified.
Sometime today.
Yes, it will.
No
Yes.
indication whether they could bail out or...
We believe that they were lost
At sea or on land, sir?
Will we
at
fly-
sea.
Will we fly reconnaissance missions over there?
We'll take such action as is necessary to determine the results of our operations.
How much of the petroleum supply did you say was...
Approximately 10% of the petroleum capacity of North Vietnam is located at Vinh, the point which was struck. Approximately 90% of that 10% was destroyed.
Sir, are these the only 4 torpedo boat bases that
These 4 are the main bases. With a coastline such as this, of course, the boats occasionally use other bases for staging areas.
Tell us what percentage of their total fleet, 20?
No, I can't, except that it's a very substantial percentage.
Mr. Secretary, how do you explain these attacks?
I can't explain them. They were unprovoked. As I told you last night, our vessels were clearly in international waters. Our vessels, when attacked, were operating in this area, roughly 60 miles off of the North Vietnamese coast.
There have been reports that South Vietnamese vessels were shelling or taking some sort of action against North Vietnam in this area at approximately this time.
No, to the best of my knowledge, there were no operations during the period I was describing last night. Yes.
Mr. Secretary, what orders now for either the 7th Fleet or for these particular units of the 7th Fleet?
Our orders to the commanders are to continue their patrols, to protect themselves against aggression on the high seas with whatever force is necessary.
Has there been any word what...
Yes.
Would you say that this is all that will be necessary now that the attack has achieved its objectives?
Whether this is all that is necessary depends entirely on the actions of the North Vietnamese.
You feel the airstrike accomplished the objectives?
The airstrike very clearly made clear to the North Vietnamese our intention to maintain our right to operate on the high seas. That was the objective. I think that has been accomplished.
What is the objective? To wipe out the PT boat fleet?
Our objective was to deter the PT boat fleet from further attacks on our vessels. I believe we've accomplished that.
Were any attempts made, Mr. Secretary, to go after the anti-aircraft batteries?
There were no actions against the anti-aircraft batteries. The attack was against the patrol boat bases and the associated facilities.
Secretary, last night there were 3 bogies reported, 3 unidentified aircraft. Did we ever find out in which direction these aircraft...
We have no further information on those unidentified aircraft. They did not participate in the attacks on our vessels.
Sir,
Yes.
are there villages or towns adjacent to or linked up with these bases?
There were no civilian centers close to the bases which were attacked last night.
Mr. Secretary, could you give us the estimate how many % of the North Vietnamese patrol boat fleet has been destroyed or damaged?
No, I can't estimate for you the exact % destroyed or damaged, other than to say that it was a very substantial percentage of their fleet. One more question, yes.
From what you say, there are no further actions of this kind going on at the moment or planned, is that correct?
No operations are being carried on by our forces at the present time, other than the continuation of the routine patrol activities of the Turner Joy and the Maddox, the 2 destroyers which have been operating in international waters in the Gulf of Tonkin. Thank you very much. Which have directly supported the operation of the PT boats. Furthermore, in view of the unprovoked attacks, the deliberate attacks in international waters on U.S. naval forces, the United States has taken the precaution of moving substantial military reinforcements to Southeast Asia from our Pacific bases. In addition, we are also sending reinforcements to the Western Pacific from bases in the United States. I think you can understand it's not wise at the present time for me to identify these forces or to list the detailed strength of these movements. But I can assure you that the movements are appropriate to the provocation. Now I'd like to review briefly in chronological order the unprovoked attacks which took place today, August 4th, on our vessels operating in international waters in the Gulf of Tonkin. You'll recall that the destroyer Maddox, operating in those waters on Sunday, was attacked by 3 PT boats. The President instructed us to add the destroyer Turner Joy to the patrol being carried out by the Maddox, and since that time, the 2 vessels have operated on patrol in those waters. You'll see their course on this map. Here is the southern portion of China, the coast of North Vietnam, down to the 17th parallel, below which, of course, is South Vietnam, Hainan Island, possessed by Communist China, the course of our destroyers operating 30, 40 to 60 miles off the coast of North Vietnam, international waters, moving southward. At 7:40 p.m. on August 4th, 7:40 p.m. local time, Vietnamese time, August 4th, the Maddox, at about this position, reported radar contact with unidentified surface vessels who were paralleling its course, paralleling the track of both the Turner Joy and the Maddox. At 8:36 p.m., by which time it was about in this position, the Maddox established new radar contacts with 2 unidentified surface vessels and 3 unidentified aircraft. At this time, U.S. fighter aircraft were launched from the carrier Ticonderoga, which was also operating in the Gulf of Tonkin. These fighter aircraft were launched to rendezvous with the Maddox and the Turner Joy and to provide air cover to them. At 9:08, by which time the Maddox and the Joy had advanced south to approximately this point, the unidentified aircraft had disappeared from the destroyer's radar screens, and the surface vessels were remaining at a distance. By that time, the aircraft from the USS Ticonderoga had arrived over the destroyers, and they commenced defensive patrol over them. By 9:30, the destroyers were at this point, and at this time, the initial attack occurred. Additional vessels had by now appeared on the Maddox radar screen, and these vessels were observed to close very rapidly on the destroyers at speeds in excess of 40 knots. The attacking surface vessels continued to close rapidly from both the west and the south. By 9:52, the Maddox and the Turner Joy had continued south to approximately this point, and they reported they were under continuous torpedo attack and were engaged in defensive counterfire. By 10:15, they had advanced approximately to here. They were reporting they were avoiding torpedoes and that they had sunk one of the attacking patrol craft. At 10:42, the destroyers reported they had evaded additional torpedoes and had sunk a second of the attacking patrol craft. Other protective aircraft from the Ticonderoga had arrived overhead and had joined the defensive patrol. At 10:52, the Maddox reported the destroyers were again under attack. At midnight, by which time the vessels were in this position, the destroyers reported that they had suffered no hits, no casualties, and that the defensive aircraft from the Ticonderoga were illuminating the area and attacking the enemy surface craft. At 12:32, at which time they were at this point, the patrol reported that an additional enemy craft was believed to have been sunk and that low ceilings, poor weather, was beginning to hamper the aircraft operations. At 12:54, the Turner Joy, one of the 2 destroyers, reported that during the engagement, in addition to the torpedo attacks, the destroyer had been fired upon by automatic weapons while being illuminated by searchlights. And at 1:30 a.m., by which time the destroyers were in this position, they reported the attacking craft had apparently broken off the engagement. The Maddox and the Turner Joy were directed to resume their normal and routine patrol operations, and they are continuing them at the present time. And now I'll endeavor to answer your questions.
Sir, was there anything else ever seen or heard from the unidentified aircraft?
No, the unidentified aircraft did not participate in